9-win seasons in 2015 and 2016. He was forced out. Then comes Jeremy Pruitt. I had high hopes for him. Didn't make it. Didn't have the communication skills. Heck of a coach, X's and O's wise, but hey, the PR part of it is huge. The big check is nice, but you got to be able to handle all of it. Good luck for Jeremy Pruitt. Hope he's okay from the big Mack truck that ran over him when the Tennessee chancellor threw him and a lot of the Tennessee coaches and staff members under the oncoming 18-wheeler. But Jimmy Hodge, you're in Knoxville right now. What's the general response of the Tennessee Vol faithful about hiring? Obviously, Danny White last week is a rock star. Everybody says it as AD, but Josh Heupel, his football coach, he brought with him from Central Florida.
Well, it's kind of run the gamut. I mean, you have a good portion of the fan base that realizes this is not a good situation when you look at the sure to follow NCAA penalties will be coming, and they're not going to be light by anybody's expectations. So I think that was a big reason that Heupel was given a 6-year contract, because this is going to be a tough and long haul. And because of these NCAA issues, that pretty much eliminated any chance Tennessee had to bring in what would be considered a high-profile, big-name coach. So I think Heupel was, as good as they could have hoped for. I mean, he's done a really good job at Central Florida. He's coached at high-profile programs. He finished second in the Heisman Trophy voting when he played quarterback on Oklahoma's 2000 national championship team. Was on the Oklahoma staff for a decade, and then he was on the Missouri staff. He was the offensive coordinator, helped in the development of Drew Lock. They went to the SEC championship game 2 years in a row. And then he replaced Scott Frost at Central Florida and really carried on very well. And then 2 years ago, the UCF program suffered the horrific knee injury to Mackenzie Milton. And that took a lot of air out of the tires there. But still, he's a solid coach. And again, I don't think Tennessee could have, asked for much more.
Yeah. Mitch Davis is on here with us as well, host of the MitchDavisShow.com. And Mitch, looking at it, I think this is the second coaching hire. Most people were totally caught off guard about Brian Harsin being hired at Auburn after 7 years at Boise State. Here's Josh Heupel. It doesn't surprise people. I mean, he'd been with Danny White, was his AD at Central Florida. He's hired. Of course, people talked about Tony Elliott and a bunch of other names for the Tennessee job. What do you think about this hire? What does it really hit you? Is, hey, I think this is great, or here's another guy that's just going to try to outscore everybody in the SEC?
I honestly and truthfully don't think it's a great hire. I've covered him 2 or 3 times at UCF. I can't recall how many times it's been, but I know it's been at least twice. I was never impressed with Josh Heupel at UCF. I thought the program had taken a dramatic drop since Scott Frost took over, especially when you look at the overall records. When you look at 12-2 Heupel's first year, which was Scott Frost's kid. Second year, he was 7-3. And then now this year, he was 6-4. It's really not a only Tennessee could get this year.
Yeah, Josh Heupel as a coach, he'd been with Bob Stoops a long time at Oklahoma, developed some quarterbacks, but it's all about the offense. You saw the Memphis Central Florida game this year, almost 1,600 yards of total offense. I mean, that set college football defenses back 60 or 70 years. I like defense. I know we all do. You got to have it. But you can't outscore people. And in the SEC, I'll throw this one back to Jimmy. We lost Jimmy. If you can't play defense in the SEC, it is a line of scrimmage league. Not that other leagues are not, but the best athletes in terms of front 7 personnel play in the SEC, especially on the top 7 or 8 teams. Jimmy, Josh Heupel's got a lot of work to do when it comes to recruiting. A lot of Tennessee players are in the transfer portal. That doesn't mean they're leaving, but there's a lot of guys that need to be convinced this new coach is the right captain of the ship. You don't want that guy that was in charge of the Exxon Valdez at cocktail hour that sunk that ship in the bay. You've got to have the right hire. Is this it? And again, you don't have a crystal ball, but you know a lot about what a coach looks like and needs to be, especially up on the hill. And Jimmy, I think we may have lost Jimmy. I'm not sure if he's there or not, but Mitch, I'll throw it to you. The question I asked Jimmy, go ahead and answer that, and we'll get back to Jimmy.
Yeah, the question we asked Jimmy, so Tennessee is a program that needs stability. It might not be what Tennessee fans want right now, but Heupel's going to bring stability to the program. I'm not convinced on Danny White yet, just because he doesn't fit the mold of, Tennessee athletics. Tennessee's a proud university, and everywhere that Danny White has been a, hey, let's claim a national championship, try to, lowball everything that we could possibly do, and then, sell off a fake product. And that's what he did at UCF. And, talking to a Memphis guy about UCF is like talking to an Auburn guy about Alabama. But when you look at UCF success, yeah, it was, Scott Frost, but Josh Heupel really didn't do much at UCF, and I don't expect him to do much at Tennessee.
That's going to be a closely watched hire. I mean, again, Tennessee, and Jimmy and I talked about this before the show, and Jake Crane, we did a couple of podcasts this week. He'll be on here in the second hour with us. Look, Tennessee, these are three statistics, three numbers. Tennessee has got to get over. They've lost 15 of the last 16 to Florida, 14 in a row to Alabama, 7 of the last 8 to Auburn. Who is Tennessee beaten in this millennium worth a damn? And Jimmy, if you're there, great. If not, hey, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back. I want to say this real quick. First off, about the Dorian Agency. Tom Dorian, 6240 Poplar Avenue. That is my insurance man. Audrey and I work with Tom and his team. Homeowners, life, property, and casualty. You need to have that conversation. People say, can you have too much insurance? Sure you can. A lot of times you don't have enough. You want to know, hey, do I have what I really need? Have that conversation with Tom Dorian, a friend of mine, known him 43 years, CBHS alumnus, University of Memphis graduate, started on the offensive line for 3 years, father of 5, great man, a friend. You can trust Tom Dorian, 6240 Poplar Avenue in East Memphis, right before the Chick-fil-A near Poplar and Massey. Check him out on our website, The Dorian Agency. Let's take these quick commercial breaks from our sponsors. Sidelines will be with you till 5 p.m. Central on a Friday afternoon, January 29th, 2021. Just to make sure, my dad always says, give the date. So for archival purposes, and for those listening who might miss the show because they're at bowling practice or they had frat cakes and they're in a food coma, I don't know. But we'll be right back. Sidelines.live.
He did the Dorian commercial, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Hey, Mitch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sounded like Jimmy was he was getting attacked by a Bigfoot. I don't know. No, but he was gonna have to get off at like 3:15 anyway. Then he's gonna be back on around 4:40 or so. So it's you and me. Wes Moore from Little Rock will be calling here. Any glasses I can wear that aren't broken.
Okay.
I cannot. I go through reading glasses.
I can do probably right around until about 3:30, and then I'll get head to work.
Okay, you do? Okay, that's fine. Yeah. All right. Yes, sir. All right. Okay. And then Wes Moore will be on at 3:30. Okay. Let me see. Just 1 second. Tell me how much longer, Audie?
2 minutes.
Okay. 2 minutes, Mitch.
But you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
and all that, so
Okay.
you can
Yeah. Mitch, we're on YouTube. So always remember, be mindful of the words you use because they're like bullets. You can't take them back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just 1 second.
Why is your dog crying?
Because you better put
I will.
her in the microwave. Hey, Mitch, what was the final of the Memphis game last night?
Oh, I can look it up real quick. I'm on my laptop.
Yeah.
Turn that off.
I am. Well, y'all got me so just before we went on the air so much. I mean, that's just insane.
Oh, he did Tom Dorian, so you don't have to do Tom
You
Dorian.
just told me that.
Okay, just remember to do Red River, but don't do it now. Do it the next one.
67-65.
Okay.
Okay, y'all are down to 20 seconds. I'm going to turn on the microphone, okay?
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't hear or tell you anything, but I'm telling you to go ahead and start talking. Rob, start talking.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Friday afternoon edition of www.sidelines.live. And we've had Jimmy Hodge was on here with us the first part of the show. He had to drop off. He'll try to be back on with us 4:30 to 5 o'clock window when we have Jimmy Ott from down in Baton Rouge talking LSU, SEC, basketball, baseball. Again, Jimmy covers LSU like all of our guests. So many of them are hosts of radio shows in SEC towns or in Memphis, where you cover Memphis, the SEC, AAC, whatever. But Mitch Davis is on here with us right now. Mitch, we were talking about it again, with Tennessee, their brand in the last 21, years. And in 1998, they win the national championship, and they were still strong in the early 2000s. 2001, they played for the SEC championship. Again, they were going to the Rose Bowl. Looked like they were going to play in the BCS national championship game. It didn't happen. They lost that game. And it's not like they've been on a tailspin the last 20 years, but that's as close as they've been to the national championship since then. Let's talk real quick about this Tennessee brand and then what's happened in the last 8 years with Vanderbilt. Was that, I guess they're 3-4 in the last 7 years. They're 4-3 in the last 7 years against Vanderbilt, and the rise of the University of Memphis. And granted, they're not playing an SEC schedule, but the AAC, in my opinion, is better than the Pac-12 right now. And it's got a great leader, Mike Orasco. Talk if you and I'd like for you to comment on this. What's happened? Because the University of Memphis is going into Middle Tennessee and doing really well recruiting in the Metro Nashville area. And they're just getting started. With that new Dr. Rudd, they're 65-26 since he became president 7 years ago.
Yeah, so Dr. Rudd has done an amazing job building this program. And before we get into talking about Memphis, I do want to say my thoughts and prayers go out to John Chaney, the old Temple basketball coach who passed away today. Very, very sad. He's in his upper 80s. Great guy, and was a big instrument in actually getting the American Athletic Conference off the ground and really building Temple basketball into a national brand. So my thoughts and prayers go out to John Chaney's family and of course all the Temple basketball program. As far as Memphis football goes, it's in the best position, man. I'm so excited for this upcoming season. Excited for the spring practice, and then of course signing day is February 7th next week. And there's a lot of excitement going on around this Memphis football program.
Well, again, Tennessee has the new coach, 5th one since December of 2008. All right. Ryan Silverfield, his first year at Memphis, goes 8-3. Defense played better late in the season. That 10-7 road win in Annapolis, the first ever for the University of Memphis. A lot of strange things happened. I don't know if the defense improved that much for Memphis as the season went on, but they're a program that now expects to win. They've raised the bar. Again, once your mind expands from its original position, let's say you're a program that 4-8, 5-7, you go 500, you have a parade for the coach. Then you win 11 or 12 games like Memphis did in 2019. They went to the Cotton Bowl. Probably had a little bit of the deer in the headlights effect when they played out at Jerry's World in Arlington, Texas against Penn State. But Memphis this year goes 8-3. I've always said, as long as the fans are as mad after a football loss as they are basketball losses, they'll have as good a football program as they want to have. Mitch, Tennessee now, though, Josh Heupel coming up here from Central Florida. He's been in a league where a lot of times they could outscore people, but that's his thing. It's going to be fun to watch. Kevin Steele, again, interim coach at Auburn and Tennessee in 17 days for 2 Power 5 programs. Looks like he might even head off to the NFL. And I'm sure Auburn owes him money. Tennessee, I think, is going to owe him $900,000 for his week and a half up there, 2 weeks in Knoxville. I want to be Kevin Steele right now. What a great job, Mitch. Hey, let's talk about some basketball right now. What are you seeing out there? SEC, AAC, Big 12, Big 10, AAC, Pac-12. Give me your top 5 right now. I know who my top 2 are. After that, it's pretty wide open.
Yeah, that's actually a really good statement. My 1 and 2, one would be Gonzaga. I think the offensive mindset of Gonzaga and Mark Few is the best in the country and possibly the best in the last 5 or 6 years that we've seen in college basketball. Number 2 would be the Baylor Bears. They've got a big game against your Auburn Tigers tomorrow. My number 3 would be Michigan right now. I think Michigan, I like what Michigan's doing. I like what I just absolutely love Michigan this year. I was talking to Mike DeCourcy today, and he's high on Michigan as well. My number 4, as of right now, would be the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they've got a big game tomorrow at Oklahoma. Alabama's on a 10-game winning streak, 14-3 overall. I'm actually working on an article right now talking about the SEC Big 12 Challenge tomorrow and talking about the Alabama-Oklahoma game. And, I'll throw in my 15 here. I'm going to have to go with Texas. I really like what Shaka Smart has been able to do. Their guard play has been a lot of fun to watch. Then you go down the line and just starts getting kind of wide open a little bit. But I don't think there's a better team in the SEC right now than the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Second year for Nate Oates, who came from Buffalo. He inherited a lot of talent. John Petty out of Huntsville, as good a three-point shooter as there is in college basketball. Davion Mitchell out of Hinesville, Georgia, Liberty County High School over there. That's Fort Stewart. He played at Auburn as a freshman, averaged 17 minutes a game. But Jared Harper and Bryce Brown, he couldn't beat out Jared Harper. He's outstanding. He's regarded by a lot of people as the best defensive guard in the country. And you look at the Big 12 in basketball, compare the Big 12 to the ACC. Look, the ACC looked to me early on. What happened to the ACC this year? They have their heart into it. It's the worst I've seen that league in memory.
I was talking to somebody who was Mike DeCourcy today, and I was talking to him and a few other people talking about the ACC. And same thing with Kentucky. North Carolina and Duke, they recruit these one-and-done players. In a year that you don't have any preseason, you don't have anything. You don't have preseason trips to Spain or the Bahamas or wherever. You just literally show up, you play basketball, and you're playing with freshmen. And we're seeing the downfall of that with Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky right now. But when I compare the Big 12 to the ACC, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges this year when you look at top to bottom, especially in the Big 12. Your top 3, 4 in the Big 12, you've got Kansas, you've got Baylor, Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham. Iowa State's not a bad basketball team this year. Same thing with the SEC. When you look at the SEC, with the exception, of course, Kentucky, Vandy, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, the exception of those teams, and now Auburn because they did self-impose a postseason ban this year. When you look at 9, 10 out of the SEC teams, I would say 8 or 9 of those have a real good capability of making a deep run in the NCAA tournament this year. And it's, the SEC Big 12 Challenge is going to be a lot of fun, and game I'm most looking forward to because Kentucky and Texas got canceled. The two games I'm looking forward to are early game between Alabama and Oklahoma there in Norman, and then also LSU and Texas Tech in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. There are only 10 of the 14 SEC teams are able to play in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and that's based on, I think, what you did the year before. Let's look at this Memphis program. And I know you've got to get off here in a few minutes, but a couple of years ago, we heard a lot about the University of Memphis signing the number 1 ranked recruiting class in the country. Then you had the deal with Wiseman last year after about 3 games out. Evaluate this number 1 ranked recruiting class, where they stand and how relevant they are with Memphis basketball right now versus where a lot of people, probably most people, thought the Memphis program would even be.
Overall, I think you asked this 3 weeks ago about Penny Hardaway and what grade I would give him right now. And honestly, I would probably give him a C, just a C overall. He's been okay, good at times and really bad at times. And, the last 4 or 5 games have really seen a vast improvement from this Memphis team. And, last night they go down to Dallas, Texas, and they come back after being down by 18 points. And they end up losing 67-65 there at the closing minutes there against SMU. But you still see the fight. You still see the want. You still see the heart. And when you look at Memphis's remainder of the schedule, with the exception of Houston, every game is winnable. Monday night they play UCF at home. Wednesday night, another game against UCF. Next Saturday, a game that I'll be at, East Carolina, 1 p.m. tip-off there at the FedEx Forum. Then you've got Cincinnati on the 11th on that Thursday night. And then the only games that I would say that are not winnable games are at Houston. And then when Houston comes to here, but when you look at the remainder of the schedule, and you've got, UCF at home, ECU at home, Cincinnati, who's terrible this year at home, Temple at home, Tulane at home. And then you close out the season against Houston at home on March 7th, on that Sunday, March 7th, 11 a.m. You start looking at Memphis' schedule. You start getting pretty excited. And right now, I think they're tied for second place with SMU. Of course, Houston's running away with the standings right now.
Yeah. All right. Look, Mitch, I know you've got to go right now, and we're going to be joined here in just a moment by Wes Moore from over in Little Rock, and talking about the Razorbacks and SEC and all, and also Justin Wynn from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. One of our sponsors will be on here with us too. But look forward to having you back on here with us in the morning. As always, great job. Having you on the show is like inviting a great trial attorney or an expert witness on whatever the topic is, in this case, football and basketball. And man, thumbs up. And tell people real quick how they can follow you.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, MitchDavis_8. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Type in the Mitch Davis Show, and then the website, themitchdavisshow.com. Got an SEC Big 12 article, hopefully going to go up in the morning, and also got a really good interview with Mike Drakorski from sportingnews.com that will hopefully, I've run into some technical difficulties today, but will hopefully be dropped later this afternoon, early tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I know
tomorrow, there's a lot of great games on tomorrow.
Okay. Again, give us that address one more time.
Yeah, themitchdavisshow.com, themitchdavisshow.com. It's a one-stop shop for college basketball, college football, and college baseball as well.
All right, look, Mitch, if you get a chance, you go in there and look at our live feed that we have for Sidelines. You'll see we've got some distinguished guests today. Tom the Turkey has joined us, a gobbler with about a 10-inch beard. In fact, he's got a double beard, but he would agree with you. And also the Hams beer sign in the background. Hams, the beer you've been looking for since 1865. Hey, Mitch, have a great night. Lots of great basketball coming up this weekend. Lots to talk about. You the man. We love Mitch Davis. I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, we are joined now by Wes Moore.
Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
You bet, man. You too. Mitch, thanks so much again. Now, Wes Moore of ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. And hey, Wes, Rob Brown here with you on Sidelines.live with you till 5 p.m. Central. We're broadcasting live from Parkin, Arkansas, looking out at Crowley's Ridge. Maybe this is a debate, Crowley's or Crowley's. It depends on where you're from, but I call it Crowley's. But you're over in Little Rock We were over in Wynn last night at the Hot Stone Restaurant. We love that place over in Wynn. Great place, by the way, if you're ever in Wynn. And it's also home of one of our sponsors, Wes, who's going to join us in just a minute, Justin Wynn of Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. But, hey, let's talk about the job being done by Eric Musselman. He had a top 10 recruiting class. This is his second year at Arkansas. Give us a progress report. A, B, C, D, F. What do you give him?
You know what? I'll give him a C right now. This year has been nothing spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary. Honestly, if you just look, non-conference schedule is really easy. They took care of business, ran the slate. So give them credit. They didn't slip up, and you see teams slip up and lose to somebody they're not supposed to all the time. And in SEC play, it's kind of the same story. They haven't beaten any of the top teams, but they hadn't lost any of the bottom teams. So they're just right there in the middle. So that's why I kind of give them an average grade, just to see that, they haven't done anything. They weren't able to beat Tennessee or Alabama or LSU or Missouri. But, that's a tough gauntlet right there. They lost all 4 of them. To give them credit, though, they've played 5 teams below them, and they've beaten all 5 teams. So they're 5-4 in conference, but they're still looking for that signature win. And maybe that comes tomorrow against Oklahoma State. Cade Cunningham, maybe the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Oklahoma State's got a nice team. They're 4-4 in the Big 12. But Arkansas is still looking for that, that notch that they can put on their belt that the NCAA selection committee goes, okay, all right, this is a good team.
Yeah. And it looks like it's still early. We know we're going to have an NCAA tournament this year. I don't think the NCAA can afford to go 2 straight years losing $1 billion or more, which is what they make from the tournament. That's 90% of their budget. And it looks like it might be played in Indianapolis, but never too early to start talking about who might go and who might not go. I hate the term the bubble. I mean, that is just, it's so annoying because they start so early, last 4 in, first 4 out and all that stuff. But Arkansas, to me, what I've seen out of them is they're gonna play hard for 40 minutes. I loved when Nolan Richardson was there for 17 years, 40 minutes of hell. Incredible, the intensity. He won a national championship in junior college. He was successful at Tulsa, won a national championship at Arkansas, played for it twice, 94 and 95. Arkansas, Wes, their basketball program, the Bud Walton Arena, 19,000. The fans, the passion, it's all there. And let's do this. I want to say this real quick. We're going to bring in, and we're going to get back to that about the passion of the Razorbacks. And Wes Moore, it's appropriate that we have on a serious hog Razorback, Justin Wynn, general manager, Red River Ford Toyota over in Wynn, Arkansas. And Justin, the whole team over there at Red River Ford Toyota, and Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy Show, is going to be on with us in the second hour. First class. I mean, every time I leave there, I tell 20 more people about your dealership. But hey, let's do this. I know we were talking Red River Ford Toyota. Let's talk about what's going on the Toyota side, because I know Jake Crane got him a great looking 2021 Toyota 4Runner, the whiteout package. Man, I've never seen an SUV like that with so much cargo room.
Man, I tell you, these Toyotas are amazing. And Jake will tell you, I mean, he came in and picked a vehicle out. I made it real simple, real easy. He worked with the banks, did what it took to make it happen. Yeah. And I think he's really excited about it. And the Toyota brand, it's legendary. It's legendary, Rob. You know, when you talk about reliability, holding resale value, it's just absolutely amazing what these Toyotas do. Yeah. And again, you know, he came up here, I like, you know, confidence is going fishing for Moby Dick and taking extra tartar sauce. Okay. He was really, and I'm going to tell you what, I watched the process. It really didn't take long. I mean, when he got there, when I tell you what, one of your salesmen, she was there texting him as we pulled up in the parking lot. That was, and you know, there was, he walked out. He goes, I've never in my life bought a vehicle. And it was so easy, and I enjoyed working with the people, and I know that they're going to be there, and they got my back. I said, that's right. It's the ownership group of Red River Ford Toyota.
focus real quick too about your trucks. I know you drive a great looking Toyota Tundra truck with the 35-inch tires on there. It's the ultimate off-road package for Toyota.
Well, again, it's all about reliability. You don't want to be out using your truck and need your truck and have something go wrong.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that with these Toyotas. I love my service department, and they do a great job back there, but I can't keep them busy enough because the Toyotas and Fords just don't have anything that goes wrong with them
Yeah.
too often. That Toyota side stays pretty empty over there.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be able to use your truck basically
Yeah.
when you need your truck, and
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, it's like the old Maytag repairman, how lonely they were. But and I got
That's
to
right.
say this too. Austin Futrell came out. What a great young man in your service department. You walk out there, it's big, it's clean, and you've got like a ready strike force team of people out there in the service department. You're open on Saturdays, what, till 12?
So 12:30.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So people can go out, go deer hunting, duck hunting, go knock out 50, 60 miles on the bike, ride the ridge, do whatever. And you're going to be open all day. What time are you opening tomorrow morning?
We'll be here. Sales will be here at 9. Service will be here at 7:30 though. So if you want to be the early bird and before get the worm, be here at 7:30 and they'll have you in and out super quick.
And again, you get the process started online, redriverfordtoyota.com. Check them out on our website at sidelines.live. If you do it all right and you follow all the props, when you go in there, you can be in and out in 10 or 15 minutes, driving your new or used vehicle off the lot. Unheard of. Again, it's an enjoyable process. And in the next hour, we're going to talk about the Ford side, Red River Ford Toyota. And Justin, call back in if you can about 4:30. Look forward to having you.
Sounds
Thanks so much for being a sponsor.
Thank you, Rob.
You bet. Okay, Wes Moore. Again, we're talking about the passion of the Razorback fan base. Money, they spent almost $170 million on Reynolds Razorback Stadium. The legacy that Frank Broyles built. He came there in 1958. He left Missouri making 10, and Arkansas offered him 15,000 a year. You look at what coaches make now, and it's just mind-boggling. But the money is there. There's a lot of money. Arkansas is a state with a lot of very successful. It's an entrepreneurial state. It's a place where anything can happen. And the fan base is committed to the Razorbacks, and it's awesome. And I got a question I'm going to ask you after this one, but talk about how important basketball is to the folks up there.
It's real big. I mean, you still have a lot of fans just chomping at the bit. The 90s were such a great time, and it all. When Richardson took over, and then there's just been this huge void. They can't get to the Sweet 16. It's just fans are hungry. They're very hungry for basketball to be relevant again. They feel like Arkansas basketball needs to be up there with Kentucky. Maybe not a blue blood like Kentucky, but to be competing with like Kentucky. And it's just been missing now for a long time. Mike Anderson had a nice little run, but he wasn't able to get them to the Sweet 16. And that this is what the Arkansas fans believe, and I think they're right. This is a top 16 program. This really should be, with the facilities they have, the history that they have. This should be a top 16 program, so it shouldn't be too much to ask for a Sweet 16 appearance. It's been 2 decades, so it's been a long time, and they're hopeful that Eric Musselman's the guy that can rebuild the program. He didn't have a whole lot to rebuild, because Mike Anderson, let's give him credit, he took over a program that wasn't doing too good, and he built it back up to respectable and got them into the tournament. They just weren't able to make any noise, and now the hope is Eric Musselman can take over from there and then take the next step and get them into the Sweet 16 and competing for an SEC title and competing to be playing on that last weekend of the season. So I don't think it's too much to ask when you have the facilities and the tradition. Now it's just the time. It's about recruiting and getting some of those players in there and coaching them up.
Well, let's give Arkansas credit. All right. They joined the SEC in 1992. 2 years later, in 94, they won the national championship. They beat Duke up in Charlotte. Prior to that, there'd been only one SEC school ever win a national championship in basketball, and obviously we know that is Kentucky. And then Arkansas did it in 94. after being in the league. I guess that was their second year. And then Florida did it, back to back with Billy Donovan. But those are the only three schools in the SEC that have ever won national championships. And Kentucky, again, is one of the blue bloods, obviously, of college basketball. I think they won more games than anybody. I think Arkansas fans should expect to have a great basketball program. I know it's a small state, less than 3 million people. Some pretty darn good basketball players have come out of here, but they've got a great brand that can go nationwide. Eric Musselman's got some NBA pedigree with his dad. That I think it's an excellent hire. We had Sonny Smith on the show last year talking about him as one of the best coaches in the SEC. So I really do think it's a great hire. Let's take a look now at Sam Pittman, the Fighting Pittmans, I like to call them, the Razorbacks. We got the second signing period, and it's basically all but done. On Wednesday will be the second signing period, February 3rd. Last year, when Pittman got the Arkansas job in the early December period, the Razorbacks finished ranked about 110, 111. By February, he'd gotten the Razorbacks up to number 29 in the recruiting rankings. How much more can Arkansas do? What do you think they're going to add to improve this class? And where do you think they could end up with the highest potential ranking, in your opinion?
I don't think the ranking's going to move too much more. The hay's pretty much in the barn. I think what they're looking for now are some grad transfers to finish out this class. They're looking for some immediate help, whether it be the offensive line, defensive line, or possibly a linebacker. They need some guys that can come in and play right away. Now, Coach Pittman did say, look, if there's that high school kid, that big-time high school kid that, decides to be a Razorback, they're not going to turn him around because you know what? He can help as a true freshman, on the D-line or linebacker or maybe offensive line, but it's on the offensive line and make a true impact. They did pick up a grad transfer, or not a grad transfer, just a regular transfer. He was looking strong at Arkansas. He's from Carthage, and grades were an issue, and ended up finally qualifying, but late. And Charlotte took him, and he started as a true freshman at Charlotte, and has transferred back to Arkansas, where Chad Morris had originally offered him, and he's excited to be coming back. And he was a 4-star offensive lineman, big time recruit. So that was kind of the transfer they added on the offensive line. I think they're set on the offensive line. They got everybody coming back on the offensive line. Two of the seniors decided they were going to come back for that extra year of eligibility. So they're set there. I honestly feel like they'll be looking defensive line, anywhere they can pick up a potential starter. That's what they'll do with these last remaining scholarships.
Sam Pittman, again, he's known obviously for his success as an offensive line coach. Barry Odom last year made a big difference early on. As the season wore on, Arkansas's lack of depth and also the virus, the LSU game, when you've got 6 of your top on the 2-deep depth chart defensive linemen not able to play against LSU, that hurt. Go back to the Razorbacks last year. They could have won 5 or 6 games in a 10-game all-SEC schedule. And I thought they'd win 4 or 5 preseason. People thought I was crazy. I don't have a crystal ball. Sam Pittman's a really good coach. But talk about that staff and the continuity and the number of those coaches. There could be changes right after signing date, but the importance of keeping this group together and how much progress and how much of a difference you noticed. And everybody, you had to be absolutely deaf, dumb, and blind if you didn't notice the progress, but the carryover and the takeaway going in the next year and the spring practice coming up as well.
Yeah, it's huge to keep your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators for the second year, and that's what they've been able to do. Coach Odom, they had several schools come after him, I think most notably Texas, and he turned them down. And his relationship, I think, with Coach Pittman, we talk about Coach Pittman being a great recruiter for kids. I think he's a great recruiter for his coaches. And Coach Odom realized he's got something, special with the relationship with Coach Pittman. They go on daily walks. They've created quite a bond. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to resurrect his career as a defensive guy. And they took the first step last year at the beginning of the season, like you mentioned, and now they want to finish that out and have a good year defensively. Made a slight adjustment on his staff at the linebacker position, and he basically promoted one of his former linebackers at Missouri to the linebacker coach. He was working off the field role for Arkansas, and that was a move that Coach Odom wanted. And then they lost their wide receiver coach, Justin Stepp, to South Carolina. He moved back closer to home. He's from there in Columbia, and his family all went to South Carolina. So that was an understandable move. But Arkansas got Kenny Guyton, and he worked with Coach Briles, Kendall Briles, there at Houston. So they were familiar with each other. And they've also made a change at tight end coach. And Coach Pittman hired a former GA from Georgia, and he was going to be the run game coordinator at Southern Miss. And Arkansas felt like that was a move they needed to make at tight end. So I think I would be surprised if there were any more moves after signing day. I think they've already made their moves, tinkered with their staff just a little bit, and now they're happy with what they got going into spring ball.
Right now, and yesterday, you saw the SEC just released the schedules for next year. Again, I love the confidence. I think the job done by SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey last year, in the midst of all the bullets flying in every direction, the negativity was so bad. We weren't going to play football. Life was going to end. The earth was going to actually stop spinning on its axis. They're talking now starting September 4th next year, full 12-game schedule. And what do you think about the Razorbacks draw? It's always going to be tough. They're in the toughest division and the toughest conference in all of sports, college or pro anyway.
Well, I think it sets up in like three different sections. They start off at home for 3 straight weeks, and everyone's already got the Texas-Arkansas game on 9/11 circled. That's going to be a huge game in Fayetteville. Their first 4 games, in fact, the 4th game's against Texas A&M at Arlington at AT&T Stadium. So you got, no true road games for the first 4 weeks, and then you have a brutal stretch. Counting A&M, you're going to go to Georgia, and then you're going to go to Ole Miss. So they're going to be on the road in Arlington, in Athens, in Oxford 3 straight weeks, and come home. They get Auburn at home, and people they've got that one circled. A little payback for the SEC officials on the 7th week of the season. Then they get UAPB playing an in-state opponent in football for the first time in a long, long, long time. They finally get their bye. And then another little brutal stretch, back-to-back games at LSU, at Alabama. And that's going to be – there's no way to put it. That's just going to be very difficult. You look at their road schedule. They go at Georgia, at Ole Miss, at LSU, at Alabama. But like you said, that's kind of life in the SEC. But, it's kind of – there's a section in there. Middle of the season, they'll host Auburn, they'll host UAPB, they get a week off, and then they host Mississippi State. So they're home for a month there. So that's a chance to rest up after that brutal 3-game stretch of going to Arlington, Georgia, and Ole Miss.
All right. You mentioned they're going to play an in-state school. And I have never been one of these people that says, oh, you just can't do it. So many people I talk to agree. Here in Parkin and that I talked to, Razorback fans, a lot of them are Razorback fans. Doesn't matter who they are. Arkansas State and Arkansas play a game every year in Little Rock. Why not? What is it's great for football in the state. It's a win-win for everybody. What are your?
Well, I think it's going to happen at some point, Rob. There's no doubt. They've started it in baseball. They've started it in basketball. In fact, last year, and you know how good the Razorback baseball team is. The Little Rock Trojans went up there, I guess the year before last because the season was canceled early. But Little Rock went up there and hammered them. Just took it to them. And you know what happened to the Razorback baseball program? Nothing. Nothing changed because they lost that one game. And so, and I know football is a little bit different animal, but I think some of the old school who, thought Frank Broyles could do no wrong, they're starting to see, well, maybe that's okay. Maybe times have changed. Maybe this isn't the 60s or 70s anymore, and it's okay if we play Little Rock or UCA or UAPB or Arkansas State. So I think slowly the tide is turning. And now that they've kind of dipped their toe in the water in baseball and softball and basketball and all these other sports, and fans are seeing how much fun that is. It's fun when you're playing an in-state opponent. And so Arkansas basketball played UCA earlier this year, and it was a fun game. If they were playing some other FCS opponent, no one would have cared.
Yeah.
And that's always been my argument. If you're going to play Louisiana Monroe, why not play Arkansas State?
Yeah.
No one's getting excited about Louisiana Monroe coming, but they'll get excited about Arkansas State. And if it's truly about money, that stadium is going to be a lot more packed against Arkansas State than it is against Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's ticket prices, your concessions, your parking, everything. It just creates excitement, and it's going to happen. And I would say within the next 5 years.
Well, that's good because, again, Arkansas State, Terry Mahajer, the athletic director there, played football at Arkansas State, done a heck of a job of building their athletic program up. Butch Jones, former Tennessee coach, spent the last 3 seasons at the Nick Saban Rehab and Treatment Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he's been allowed to fly from the nest. And I would be willing to bet you a sack full of crystals and a case of Ham's beer that he's learned a lot from Nick Saban. And again, you've got Arkansas State fans all in Jonesboro, and they're all over the place. I can tell you over here in the Mississippi Delta in eastern Arkansas, there are a ton of them, and they would love to. And again, the Razorback fans are like, yeah. Again, you mentioned it. Arkansas lost a baseball game to an in-state school. A small school, not a household name, and they carried on. That's the way it is. I know that it's good for the state, within the state. It helps those programs. It increases interest, and bottom line, it ain't going to kill you. So I think it would be fantastic to see that happen. All right, next question before we let you go. Looking around at this right where we are in college, and now we're heading in spring practice. It looks like spring practice is good to go for everybody. That's going to be a huge difference. Now Sam Pittman and Barry Odom and Kendall Browse, the coordinators, they're going to be able to spend a lot more time implementing their game plan. How big of a difference can that make, in your opinion, for Arkansas heading into next year?
Oh, Rob, you broke up.
Yeah.
Say again.
I'm saying now that Arkansas and everybody else looks like they're going to be able to have spring practice as scheduled, like they normally would, you're going to have Barry Odom be able to put in his full defense. Kendall Browse, the full offense, and make changes. They're going to obviously make adjustments and tweak it. And they have obviously Barry Odom needs depth, especially on the front 7. Sam Pittman, the whole staff, they're going to get to have a spring practice. How big of a difference on the upside do you think that will mean for Arkansas heading into the 21 football season that starts September 4th?
Well, I'll tell you, they caught a huge break last year. To get a guy who's had that many snaps in the SEC to understand football, to understand defenses, they were able to get away a little bit not having that spring practice. Well, he's gone, and now they're having to break in a new quarterback. So this is huge. Spring football is huge. Look, like I've said, they got a lot of players returning, a lot of guys who saw many snaps last year. They're losing Rakeem Boyd, they're losing Jonathan Marshall, and they're losing Xavier Kelly. I'm trying to think. That may be it. There's like 3 guys, maybe 4 that they're losing off the team. The entire team. Everybody's coming back. So now this is a reinforcement course of what they've already learned. But for me, it's all about the quarterback. It's always about quarterback play in college football, NFL, high school, whatever the case. They got to find a quarterback, and then they've got to teach that quarterback what they want. They have got to develop him, because that will be the key to the season. He's got an offensive line. He's going to have running backs. He's got the weapons at wide receiver. But now they just got to bring that quarterback along, and that's what spring practice is going to be all about.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's huge. Felipe Franks last year, he helped out a lot, having had 26 prior starts at the University of Florida. All right, Mitch Davis was on here with us earlier, and Jimmy Hodge. Tomorrow, we got this SEC Big 12 Challenge in basketball. You talked about the Oklahoma State matchup. That is huge. And right now, given, in your opinion, you watch a lot of basketball. I know you're at home right now. Where do you rank the SEC among the top 5 or 6 leagues in the country? And who's your pick for the best league in the country? Okay. Wes?
I would say, oh man, Big Ten. I'm not a Big Ten fan, but I got to give it to them. They're playing some really good basketball. Big 12. I mean, you look. Oklahoma State's a good team, and they're 4-4 in the Big 12. I mean, they're low. Baylor at the top is as good as they get. I mean, I'm not convinced that they're not better than Gonzaga right now. They're playing so well. Oklahoma's good. Texas Tech and Coach Beard. Are you kidding me? I can't wait to watch that game with LSU tomorrow night. The Big 12 is loaded. SEC's, probably right there, probably a little bit low, the ACC. They don't have that. Alabama's coming, but they don't have that top team right now, top 5 team in the country. But I love watching Alabama play. Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, Florida. LSU's right there on the cusp of a top 25, and if Arkansas can get some quality wins, they're a top 25 team, I believe. But they got to prove it. And that's why I said that's what makes tomorrow's game against Oklahoma State so big. This is a chance to prove that they are one of the better teams, that they can beat a better team and pick up a quality win. Next week they come home, have a couple of games against teams they should beat, Mississippi State and Texas A&M. It wasn't too long ago Arkansas was 2-4 in the SEC. Well, they've won 3 in a row. They're 5-4 in the SEC. Take care of business this week at home. You're 7-4 in the SEC, and then the gauntlet's about to start again when you're playing LSU and Alabama and Kentucky and Missouri and Tennessee. So they've got some chances down the road.
Well, yeah, and there's no question that Arkansas is getting a lot better, and everybody in this league has really ramped up their basketball. You go back about, I guess, 6-7 years ago when SEC legendary commissioner Mike Slive said, look, we've got these massive financial commitments, contracts from CBS, ESPN, everybody. We got to get our basketball better, and they've done that. All right, Wes, we're going to let you go. How do people follow you on social media? Because I know that you've got a daily show that's great.
Yeah, 2 S's in Wes, 2 O's in Moore. It's Wes_Moore on Twitter. And then you can listen to us on 1037thebuzz.com in Little Rock, or you can download our Buzz app in the App Store.
All right. Look, Wes Moore, thank you so much. Talking about the Razorbacks, SEC, college basketball, football, recruiting. Look forward to having you on again soon, and get well. And we always enjoy having you. If you got any breaking news, text us or call in later in the show.
Take care, Rob.
All right. Thank you. You too. Okay. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast, #1 in the country after 8 months, over 250 episodes, has just joined us. And Jake, hey, Pat Dye Jr. from Sports Trust Advisors agent in Atlanta. They're in Buckhead on Piedmont, and is going to be calling in here in just a few minutes. And I know he's been down at the Senior Bowl all this past week, and it's a chance to see really the top players in the country in Mobile. I know you coached on the staff there at South Alabama for 4 years with their head coach, Joey Jones, former Alabama wide receiver, heck of a player, tough as nails. And hey, we had some fun this week doing some podcasts on recruiting. What can Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina, Vanderbilt do? And also about this Tennessee hire. A lot of people have a lot of questions about that. Is this a great hire? Let's do this. Audrey, let's take a quick commercial break. We've got a whole lot to cover here with you. We've got Tom the turkey has joined us. We got the Hams Beer sign in the background. We're at the Cherry Farm in Parkin, Arkansas. Another hour to go. And all flags are at half staff in the state of Arkansas as duck season will come to an end this Sunday at sundown. But we'll make it. And hey, we're getting ready for next year. And we got the youth hunt the next Saturday and veterans hunt. And we're all going to watch the youth and our veteran member, Dave Baker. But I want to say something real quick. Hello to 2 of our loyal listeners, Robbie Kitchens and Sean Lewis. Hey, without you, what do we get out of bed for? Pat Dye Jr. is on the line with us. Jake Crane. We're going to be right back after these quick commercials. Another hour to go on the Friday edition of Sidelines.live. Okay. Hey, Pat, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, man. Hey, Jake, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, man. How y'all doing?
Hey, Pat, I've got Jake Crane on with us as well. So
Jake, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. It's nice to finally get to talk to you, and obviously, from my family to yours, what your dad meant to my dad, and obviously to me. I can't really say in words what that meant. So I'm very appreciative of you and your family and everything you guys have done.
Well, I appreciate it, man. My dad was crazy about your dad, and love coaching him, and couldn't have enough Kirk Cranes on your team or in your locker room for sure.
Well, every life lesson he taught me typically started with Coach Dye used to say. So it felt like he raised me up through there.
Well, I got those things directly.
I can imagine.
I was on the front lines for the life lessons.
Yeah, your room probably stayed as clean as mine did. Then we probably got a long time.
Oh my goodness, yeah. But no, Dad was a great dad, and I know your dad was a great dad.
He was unreal, the best.
Yeah. So where are you living now?
I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi right now, but about to move to Atlanta with the show. It's just a bigger market, and our analytics are really good there. So just doing this, coach for the last 9 years, and came back from the pandemic and did this kind of off a whim. And it's just, it's very fortunate. It's gotten really big. So just planning to move out there soon.
That's great. Well, Atlanta's a great city. It's been a little different with this election year and post George Floyd and all that stuff, but things have settled down. And
I'm going to be in Smyrna, so I'm not staying in I'll drive to work. It's actually in Buckhead. It's funny you said that. It's in downtown Buckhead where the studio is. So, but I got to get you on. I think it'd be great if you wouldn't mind. I know we texted back and forth. I know you're busy, but it'd be an honor. I did a tribute to your dad. With Stacey Searles and Ben Tamburillo and Benji Rowland really early when we started the show, and it'd be an honor to have you on. I know you know that.
Yeah, I'd love to do it, and this is actually the beginning of a window that's pretty good for me because we don't have Pro Bowl. I'm not going to Super Bowl. We're not going to have a combine, so I'm going to be around and
like 20,
pretty readily available.
Okay, it's like 20 seconds, guys. We'll be back on from these commercials.
I know we'll talk. I really appreciate that.
Hey, Pat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pat, I've got him. He's going to meet with my stepdaughter, Mallory, that went to Alabama. And she's still a good person. And she lives in Smyrna, the one that manages the Iberia Bank there. So we're getting him squared away. Okay, here we go.
Nice.
Here we go. Okay, Rob Brown back here with you for hour number 2 of the Friday edition of www.sidelines.live, broadcasting from the Cherry Farm over here in Parkin, Arkansas. A beautiful sunset. We've been up since about 5:15. And Pat went out there. The limit is you can only kill one pintail a day, and that was the problem. And it's not like I'm complaining, but that's all that would come in this morning. And I am looking forward to getting you back out here. And you saw some photos from this week, and you were always welcome. And I can tell you one thing: you left positive impressions. So many people, and I got to say, what Jake was saying. So, my mom and dad are 86, dad's 92, Auburn graduate. But again, just like Jake said, so many things, life lessons started off with what your dad used to say about, and a damn thing you can do about it except go out there and lay it on the line again and again and again. And you just can't put a price on the value of hard work and relationships. And, I'm thank God every day I've got my parents, and, both of y'all know this. How important it is, mentors and all. And in your job, Pat Dye Jr., as a sports agent with Sports Trust Advisors there in Atlanta and Buckhead, you've been doing this a long time. Recruiting never stops. Mentoring never stops. Talk about your role, again, being the son of a legendary football coach, and way more than a football coach, and Jake will attest, but a mentor to literally hundreds, thousands of young men over the years. And I'm going to tell you that another lesson, your dad, it doesn't matter where the people went to school. It's about relationships. You take pride in who you are, but you don't hate on anybody.
Yeah, well, I guess I had the good fortune of having a dad that was a 2-time All-American at Georgia, and I went to Georgia for a year, and he was named head coach at Auburn. I transferred to finish my last 3 years there, and grew up in Tuscaloosa with 9 seasons with Coach Bryant. So I've got a pretty unique perspective on that that trifecta there. And I just love Southern football, SEC football, and recruit players from all different schools. And ironically, as I've shared with you before, have more former Alabama players as clients than any other school. So life can be very ironic at times. But having said that, they're putting out a lot of players over there too now.
Yeah, exactly. They are. But I mean, you've had the chance to be down at the Senior Bowl here recently. Let's talk about and Jake Crane. Come on in here right now with Pat Dye Jr. Of course, Jake Crane hosted the J Boy podcast, #1 in the country after 8 months.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Obviously, Rob, every time I can get on here and then talk to Pat Dye Jr., it's something. It's funny the connection between what his dad did at Auburn. Obviously, my dad playing with him, and at the end of the day, I mean, all you can do just is just say thank you. And when you have a guy like that, there's a difference, in my opinion, between guys that say stuff and then they really live it. And Coach Dye, all the stuff he said, and he's got some of the greatest anecdotes of all time, but something my dad used to tell me is that he said all these things, but he did all those things. And it really proved that you can be who you say you are. And I thought that was really important and really brought him and my dad close. So it's an honor to be on here as usual, but especially this get together.
Yeah. So Rob, I don't even know if you know this or not, but Jake's dad, Kurt, was literally my first client in this business.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
Yes.
Kurt Crane,
Searles,
Jake's dad was your first client. That is incredible.
Yeah. He was my first client, and Stacy Searles signed, with me that same year, and Jeff Berger was the third one. So those were that was my first draft class, was Kurt Crane, Stacy Searles, and Jeff Berger. And, I can't, Jake, tell you how much your dad and his trust and faith and belief in me as someone that, had no prior experience doing this. So granted, I'd grown up around it as a coach's son, and I'd done really well in law school, and I don't think I could mess it up. But it took somebody to, stick their toe in the pool or the deep end or whatever first. And your dad was the first one. And Stacy came through shortly after that, and they were all very close with Jeff Berger as well. And but your dad and I mean, he was, as much as he was a client, he was a friend of mine. I mean, we drank beer together, we deer hunted together, and he played for Dad, and so it was a pretty easy transition in that relationship. There really wasn't one. It was just one that out of trust and but again, I'm forever grateful to him and Stacy and Jeff for giving a guy that had no prior experience in this business an opportunity. And I came back the next year and signed 9 guys from Auburn that were drafted: Lawyer Tillman, Walter Reeves, Jim Thompson, Freddie Wagan, Ryan Schulman. There was a host of guys that I signed that following year, and then I came to Atlanta and started signing guys like Emmitt Smith and all that. But your dad had a huge role, in my start and in my success in this business. And Kurt Crane, Stacy Searles, those guys are the kind of guys you wake up wanting to go to work for. But Rob, so I've been in Mobile all week. Just got back last night. Very, very unique times. At the risk of overstating the obvious here, fairly thin turnout with NFL executives just because of COVID, and they had to conduct interviews with plexiglass shields between the players and the teams and that kind of thing. But there was Jim Nagy, the director. I guess this is his 3rd year with the game. Put together a great roster, does a great job with it, and it's a great opportunity for these young men. And we were fortunate to have the most players down there of any agency in the country. We had 10 guys down there, in the game. So that was, that was exciting for us. And the Senior Bowl this year took on very unique importance because they canceled the combine, and they're not They're not going to allow teams to go in for private workouts on campus. They're not going to allow teams to host players on visits, what we call top 30 visits. So the interaction that these young men had at the Senior Bowl was really, really important and significant because they're not going to have much, if any, interaction, with these teams off the field. They'll get to spend a little time with them around their pro days to the extent a school does actually, go through with their pro day. A lot of those will probably be canceled as well. We'll just have to wait and see. But because of that, very limited interaction teams are going to have with these players, the Senior Bowl took on, really, really unique importance. And that's actually kind of where Jake, your dad, committed to me. Back then players didn't sign. Back then players didn't sign coming off the field after the bowl game. They went down to the Senior Bowl without an agent, and we had a good meeting down there, and he kind of gave me the nod down there. So that was, it's always special thinking about that. Rob, one thing to point out, really last year, because pretty much all the pro days last year got canceled. They did have a combine, but this year without a combine and without private workouts, scouting had gotten so analytical. It was all numbers, height, weight, speed, jumps, timed agility drills, and all these different things. We're not going to have much of any of that, this year. So it's going to take these, player personnel directors, scouts, GMs, back to what guys used to do, which is watch film and watch tape and try to identify the best players and not the best track stars. And that's probably where it should be. So
my dad used to say that if you play middle linebacker and need to run 40 yards to catch somebody, you don't need to be playing.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, if your middle linebacker is running 40 yards to chase somebody, your defense, that guy's probably going to score.
That's exactly right.
Probably going to score. Not many middle linebackers running down a guy after 40 yards. So, but they do get, I guess some information out of their 10s and their 20s and their jumps and all that kind of stuff. But I go back to, as long as you've got a decent height and weight on a guy and he can play on tape. I mean, fast players usually play fast on tape,
Yep.
And so, but it'll be interesting to see. And they're going to have to conduct a lot of these interviews with players, via Zoom and just virtually. And I think you miss a whole layer of context and not being able to sit in a room with a guy and really and truly look him in the eye and feel his body language, shake his hand, feel his presence, those kind of things. So it's a real challenge for these teams. And frankly, it's like ripping off the training wheels because, as I said, they've had so much historically these last 10, 15 years, so much access to information. I mean, just, Senior Bowl, all their tape in college, Senior Bowl tape, their workouts at the combine, running 40s at the combine, running 40s at pro day, running 40s in private workouts, bringing them in for a team visit. There was just so much more interaction and access to information, whether it was numbers or just access to the player in person. And so much of that, last year and even more so, much more so this year without even having a combine. At least last year they had a combine. A lot of guys did run 40s. A lot of guys did meet with teams because that was before we really knew, about COVID. I mean, we were hearing about it, but we weren't on lockdown. It was shortly after the combine, in early March that we started all that stuff.
Yeah. Jake, from coaching the last 9 years, how important it is to be able to evaluate talent. And Pat, in your role as the leader at Sports Trust Advisors, you've been doing this for 30 plus years. What are the characteristics? What do you look for when you meet with prospective clients? You're wanting to be their agent, their representative. You were like number 1 or 2 in your law school at Cumberland after you graduated from Auburn. But I can just being around you for 2 seconds. You're a great listener. You're picking up on things. What do you look for?
Well, Rob, I'm really, you know, all I have as an agent is my time. You know, I'm not managing a company that's manufacturing automobiles 24/7 with 3 shifts and all that stuff. All I have is my time. So it's very important for me to use my time wisely. So what we try to do is there's 3 characteristics we're looking for. We're looking for ability, obviously. We're looking for character, and then we're looking for an element, for lack of a better word or phraseology, which is what we would call signability. Now, ability is obvious. That's an obvious element. Character is an obvious element. And the signability piece is, you know, can we sign this player? For instance, does he have an older brother that's in the league that's happy with his agent? That guy's probably not very signable. So we need to check all 3 of those boxes. And, you know, a lot of, you know, football fans can get the ability part right. And, you know, we'll assemble a list of about 150 guys and try to cross-check their ability with their college coaches. You know, if we're looking at a guy at Alabama, we'll talk to our Alabama clients that played with him, and we'll talk to them about their ability. But the one piece that we definitely try to get it right before we even pursue somebody, much less meet with them, is the character quotient. And we get that from talking to our existing clients that played with that young man. We get it from talking to coaches at that school. We'll get it talking to NFL scouts who, you know, they obviously have their methods of research and researching, you know, players' intangibles and character and all those things. And truly, if we can't check all 3 of those boxes on a guy, we won't even, you know, we won't even send our information to them, much less try to, you know, chase down a meeting with them. So we really do try to get that part of it right on the front end. And as we go along and we start seeing things that, you know, maybe contrary to what we've heard, like, you know, we just don't have a good vibe about a guy or a good vibe about the way he's approaching this decision or the way his family's approaching this decision, you know, we'll just ease off and go spend our time on somebody that we do think we can sign. We do think we're, you know, a good fit with. And so it kind of works itself out. And I had a longtime competitor tell me 20 years ago, and I've been doing this 33 years. And as I said, Jake's dad was in my first recruiting class, and that was the 1988 draft. I had a guy 20 or so years ago that I respect, and we compete against each other. And he's like, man, he said, you represent the best kids. And I'm like, well, it's real easy. You got to recruit the best kids. And, you know, and there's an old saying, and I know y'all all heard it, you know, leopards don't change their spots. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, someone can't change. My God, you look at what Tyrann Mathieu done with his life and the way he changed and the person he is today. I mean, you can change, but it's hard. And, you know, so if somebody's been a certain way all during college, I don't go in there thinking that, you know, all of a sudden because we're involved, they're going to, you know, change overnight or what have you. So I think you kind of get what you get what you've been hearing, you know, whether it's from teammates or coaches or what have you.
Yeah. Jake, come on in.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, one thing that I wonder is, you know, social media has changed everything. Obviously, just like the internet changed everything. But I would think just from, you know, representing guys and now having that social media aspect of it, how much has it changed? Not just, you know, how you monitor guys and make sure they're aware, but how you pitch it to guys, saying, you know, because obviously I'm sure that's one wing that you guys discuss when it comes down to marketability and exposure as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we'll just put that under the category of branding, if you will.
Yeah.
And social media is a huge avenue in terms of building your brand and building your followers and all that stuff. And you're right. I mean, social media does give us the ability to follow these guys, see when they're posting, what they're posting, who they like, who they don't like. And I mean, it's politics, religion, partying, whatever it might be. And here's the other thing, equally important, probably more important, these young men. These teams, NFL teams, typically have multiple employees that do nothing but follow these players on social media. And there's all kinds of algorithms and things you can derive when you look at when these guys post, what they post, how they're posting, all of that stuff. You can really do a deep dive on their, kind of character DNA, what have you, based on social media. But yeah, we talk about the importance of knowing that once you put something out there, it's out there forever, not just in this country, but in China, Russia, wherever. And not that you got a bunch of scouts over there, but it's for the whole world to see. And it just doesn't go. You can take a post down, but screenshots and all that stuff. So we talk about that aspect of it, but we also talk about what a great opportunity it is to get your helmet off with the fans, and with teams about, when you post, how you post, building your brand. And, in an ideal world, ultimately, we're able to, as marketers, we're able to monetize a given client's or player's social media. I mean, Kenyon Drake, for instance, has, well over 100,000 followers on Twitter. So he gets paid to post about products that he likes and things like that. And one thing that we're big on is our clients being authentic to who they really are. And, if they're a Coca-Cola guy, they're not talking about Pepsi or vice versa. And, so we're really, it's very important that our players be authentic to who they are and their brand DNA.
Pat, and Jake, you're going to be moving to Atlanta here in the next week or so. And, you go there on Piedmont, Melt is right down the street. There in Buckhead. I'll just tell you, we were there October 30th. Took us 45 minutes. And Pat, you can relate to this every day and just kind of get Jake ready for it. 45 minutes to move through two lights. And it wasn't that far to get to the Melt headquarters. But you're right. What I call Atlanta, the largest college sports market in America, 6 million people, 22 counties. And I don't understand. I know the SEC network is in Charlotte because the ESPN hub was put there years ago because of NASCAR. SEC headquarters is in Birmingham. After a couple of years, they moved the SEC championship game from Birmingham to Atlanta. You're able to see, and again, you represent more Alabama players than anybody. What's your opinion, and Jake, chime in here, about the level of talent in the SEC that's coming up for this year's draft? I know that in the last 13 drafts, since Nick Saban became the head coach at Alabama, he's had 97 players drafted, 33 in the first round. LSU's second with 89 drafted, 17 in the first round. Florida's third with 79 drafted and 13 or 14 in the first round. Georgia is fourth with 69 players drafted, 13 in the first round. Auburn's fifth with 48 drafted and 6 in the first round. And Tennessee is sixth with 32 drafted and 7 in the first round. Your thoughts on that? And I know I'm an idiot savant, and my dad is listening right now. And hello, Dad. But anyway, those are a lot of stats to throw at you, but y'all two can break that down.
Well, I think that, Rob, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. And just looking at who's been in the Final Four since we've had the college football playoffs. I think there's been an SEC team every year. Alabama's been not only in the playoffs but in the national championship game 5 of the 7 years. But you've had LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama. There are a lot of people, particularly today, that would argue that maybe Texas A&M should have been the 4th team in.
I'll argue it.
They had one loss to a number one ranked Alabama team early in the season. And so anyways, and I know I'm biased because I went to SEC schools. My dad played at SEC school. He coached at SEC schools. But I don't think anybody can argue with a straight face that SEC football is king among the Power Five conferences, and it's reflected in championships won. It's reflected in participation in the college football playoffs, and I jokingly say all the time, Clemson's an SEC school playing the ACC.
Agree all the way.
And I got to tell you, I mean, having watched my dad's play the schedule they played, and watching Auburn or Georgia or Alabama play the schedules they play now, I mean, you're crazy if you don't think that playing a 10-game SEC schedule doesn't take its toll on you. Whether it's injuries or the physical toll, the emotional toll, having to get up week after week after week after week, it's just it's hard. And the idea that Coach Saban, in an era with you can only sign 25 guys a year to be in the national championship game 5 years out of 7.
Yeah,
and you think about how close he was in the other years. I mean, it's really remarkable. And I know Clemson's right there, with them, here in the last 4 or 5 years or whatever it's been. But I, respectfully submit that, it's an easier road for Clemson to get there, and they've got, absolutely have SEC team type talent. But I just don't think that the rigors of their schedule is as difficult as Alabama, and then turn around and having to play in an SEC championship game against a great Georgia team or a great Florida team, or what have you. So it's just what Coach Saban's done is, like I said, I think it's even more impressive than what the Patriots have done in the NFL. And I know the NFL has a lot of parity in it, but when you consider how many 70 or so Power 5 teams there are, and they've been in the national champ, the final 5 out of 7 years is just, it's stunning. And they've done it, in years where, Tua's gotten hurt, or, Jalen Waddle was hurt. I mean, they've been out there with, granted, they've got plenty of great players still left, but they've done it, with some adverse circumstances.
I thought after they won the national championship with Blake Sims at quarterback, I was like, "It's Charles. It doesn't matter anymore now." But I agree. I think the debate's no longer if the SEC is the best conference; it's by how much. Because you look around, and the difference to me, and the skill players in the SEC are elite, and there's a lot of great skill players out there. I'm sure Pat, you'll agree with me on that one. But what separates the SEC is up front and the depth. You look at Alabama. Up front this year was so, especially on the offensive line, was so much further ahead than a lot of teams and any team really. But you look at the depth of the conference and the lines, even Tennessee, if they had a quarterback that was worth the salt, they have some guys who are going to play at the next level and can do some elite things. So the SEC just continues, and I'll argue this. We already know it's the best conference in baseball. I'll argue within the next 3 to 5 years, they'll be the most dominant conference in basketball. You look at the NBA draft right now, it's starting to be littered with top 10 picks from the SEC, and the teams are only getting deeper and better, and the coaches are only getting more high profile and better. So when the SEC makes its mind up and wants to dominate something, it's just a matter of time. It's like Walmart. How many can we put up? How long can we stay here? It really doesn't matter because it just means more.
Yeah, and I can't. I know there's been a lot of tradition in baseball in the SEC, and I really, I follow SEC basketball. Obviously, very proud of what Coach Pearl's done with Auburn and all that. But as far as football goes, just like you take Alabama, for instance, their left tackle is going to be a top 40, top 50 pick. Their left guard is going to be a top 75 pick. We signed Landon Dickerson, and I'm convinced that even despite this injury, he's going to end up going somewhere in the first round because he's just a once-in-a-generation center, and some people think he's actually a better guard than center. Their right tackle is an absolute freak, Evan Neal, just a sophomore. So you're talking about lining up with an NFL, truly an NFL offensive line. And I said the other day, I don't even know why it came to me. I said, I'd love to take this Senior Bowl team, the two rosters, and you could take the best players from the two rosters, and I'd love to see them play against Alabama. The All-Stars from Kansas State and Texas and wherever. And granted, there were some true juniors that weren't able to play. Trevor Lawrence could have played because he's graduated, but he didn't. Penei Sewell. I mean, there's some really good true juniors that don't play in the Senior Bowl, but I'm not convinced that if you took the Alabama players that were in the Senior Bowl, you took them off that roster and lined up with Alabama's team and played the All-Stars from the rest of the country, the fourth-year juniors and the true seniors, what have you, fifth-year seniors.
I'm taking Bama.
I think I would as well. And that speaks to the strength of the SEC. And look, Georgia and Florida, LSU on most years is not far behind. Behind Alabama in terms of as you said, the elite talent on the perimeter, the physicality up front, and then the depth. I mean, I think back about 2 years ago, I was talking to somebody in Tuscaloosa, and I said, "Hey, who should we be looking for?" And they were like, "Man, you got to go to this Quinnen Williams kid." And I'm like, "Who is Quinnen Williams? I've never heard of him." And the guy ends up being the second pick in the draft, basically playing for 1 year. And this year it was Christian Barmore. And you guys, y'all follow this stuff even more closely than I do, but it just, Josh Jacobs. I remember people telling us, Josh Jacobs. I'm like, man, that guy's barely played. And then he goes out and has that junior year he has his 22nd pick in the draft or whatever it was. So it's, and you look at the mass exodus of talent on offense for Alabama this year. I promise you they'll have somebody fill right in, come right in behind them and do well because they recruit so well and they develop players and that's one thing that Coach Saban does have is he's got leverage in the sense that if you're not playing hard or you don't want to play or you're not getting it done, he's got one just as good to replace you, and that puts you in a pretty good position to demand excellence out of those that are playing.
It really does. And you think about people say they reload, and pretty much they do. If you look at the Blue Chip Index, which is a ranking of the programs, how many 4- and 5-star players you have on your roster over a 4-year cycle, Alabama's number 1 in the country. It's no surprise at 83%. Georgia's number 2 at 82%. Ohio State's number 3 at 80%. Then you've got a jumble of Texas and LSU and Clemson in the mid-60s. And at 60% or 59%, it's a 3-way tie for the number 6 overall ranking of the most talent on your college roster, and that's Michigan, Penn State, and Auburn. And you look at Alabama, they just are a head taller and a head bigger than most everybody they play against, Pat. And Jake, from coaching, and your dad used to say, I remember when he first got to Auburn, he said, "Look, we may not be the most talented team in America, the fastest or the strongest, but ain't a damn reason in the world we can't be the hardest working and the hungriest, best prepared team every week." And when Coach Bryant won the 315th game against Auburn, 28-17, it was really interesting. I got to be in the press box with David Housel working there, and I was listening to George Lapidus, a great writer and host of a radio show on Sports 56 WHBQ for years. And Gil Brandt from the Dallas Cowboys was up there. We were listening to your dad's post-game comments. And they said, let's now go to the Auburn dressing room for Coach Pat Dye. And here we go live. And he said, "First of all, let me say congratulations to that man across the way in the other dressing room." He said, "I got all the respect in the world. Nobody deserves it more than him." And he gave great praise and respect. And you know how he felt. It was your dad. You know what it was like there. I know the Mays, Waller May and Dr. May and everybody, what the Bryant family means to not just them. And Paul Bryant Jr. has done things for a lot of people you would never know, just like Logan Young. These guys are incredible. But he said, let me say this. As soon as we start playing out of the same deck of cards as Alabama, and Georgia, and Florida, and everybody else, we're going to have our share of the fun. And he made good on that promise.
Yeah, I mean, they say the greatest testament to a coach is he can take his and beat you, and then he can take yours and beat you.
That's right.
And I don't know that Dad ever had the same roster or depth that Alabama had while he was at Auburn, or that Georgia had while he was at Auburn, or Florida had, different points in time. But they were going to be well prepared, and they were going to be physically tough. They were going to be mentally tough, and there's no way you can be better conditioned than they were.
Yeah.
And they all, I mean, I think Dad's teams through the years, for the most part, it's all about team. And we had a superstar in Bo Jackson for a while, but you know how many SEC championships we won with Bo?
One.
Yeah. We won 3 without him, with Stacey Danley and Jade Joseph and Electron Williams, and and no disrespect to those guys. And we all know that we're preseason number 1 in 84 and 85, probably the 2 best rosters Dad had. But I just don't, Bo got hurt in 84 and he got dinged in 85 as well. But I don't know that we had a lot of individuals on those teams, and maybe we let the preseason ranking, go to our head. I don't know, but I can remember being in the locker room after the 85 Cotton Bowl, and A&M had just worn us out with Bo Jackson. And I mean, probably the hardest, toughest talk I'd heard my dad give to an Auburn team. I mean, the damn paint was peeling off the wall. And he basically said, we won the SEC championship in 83, and I we had a bunch of talent, and I eased up on y'all, and we go out in 84 and lose 4 games. I think we lost 4 or 5 games in 85, despite being preseason number 1. And he said, we're just stripping this thing down, and we're going back to basics. We're going back to what we started when we came here. And those of you want to stay, y'all stay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of it, you don't have to be a part of it. And that 86 team with Jeff Berger at quarterback went 10-2. And then we win it in 87, win it in 88, and win it in 89. Because he didn't, he went back to, what he believed in, and being tough and hard nosed and all that stuff. And again, it wasn't pretty. A lot of times that 88 team might have been the best team.
Yeah.
We lose 7-6 at LSU, and then FSU in the Sugar Bowl, I guess. But his best teams were very team oriented. It wasn't about a bunch of individuals, and that was key. And and that's the thing that I give Coach Saban credit for. I mean, that team this year, dealing with, COVID and all those circumstances and all those superstars and not enough balls to go around, they always seem to be, up for the task and pull on the same end of the rope. And that's a masterful job. And when you can get guys with that kind of talent that those players have there, playing as a team, and I've talked to people that said that last year's Alabama team lacked some of that. And it's the difference in winning and losing, for sure.
Pat, you're able to meet with coaches all over the country. And I remember back June 1st when your dad died, among the first people to call you was Nick Saban. I know we just got a few more minutes. I'm going to let you go. I know you want to get home. It's 5:40 over there in Atlanta. But what's Coach Saban like as an individual? And Jake, chime in here if you got any questions, but you're around him a lot.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that I'm around him a lot. He's been great to me. I go back to, God, it was summer before the 2009 national championship team they had. Just, he was embarrassed about some of the choices some of his players had made with agents, and he took it upon himself to get proactive and get with his compliance people and say, here are the 4 or 5 names that I hear good things about from NFL teams, and they're respected and they're honest, et cetera, et cetera. And I happened to be on that list. So I got to go over there and meet with Mike Johnson and Colin Peake and Rolando McClain, and I signed those guys and Javier Arenas. I didn't have him, but so he opened the door, and every time I go over there, for the most part, I try to go by and see him. So he's very gracious with his time. And, again, it's just ironic that I represent more Alabama players than any other agent, graduated from Auburn. And I think the Alabama players have a good time. I mean, Landon Dickerson and I have a great relationship. He's talking about a great human being, a great football player.
Yeah.
But Dante Hightower, the list goes. Calvin Ridley, list goes on. Irv Smith. I represent Irv's dad. I'm old enough to have done that. Yeah, I had Irv's dad coming out in '93 out of Notre Dame, first round pick, and then got little Irv Jr. when he came out a couple of years ago. But the coaches, Coach Saban is. I mean, he's an intense guy. I mean, he's about business, and it's not a lot of joking around. And granted, when I'm over there, he's always super busy, so I don't sit there and try to take up too much of his time. But I have employees that work for him, and I've had Stacy Searles coached for him, and I'm close to Stacy.
Yes.
So I'm close to Kirby Smart, and Kirby worked for him forever. I've just known a lot of his former players, a lot of his coaches, former coaches, current coaches, administrators, what have you. And he is super demanding, but he's not any more demanding on anybody than he is on himself. It's all about ball. And yeah, during the off season, get into the summer, he loves to be at Lake Burton. He loves to play golf. But that guy is just
trying to work for
eating, sleeping, breathing football, and that's what drives him. That's what gives him satisfaction and gratification. And so it's again, it's not an accident that he's had the success he's had. He's hyper focused. And I think that, again, the ability to have to reload and develop team chemistry with a new team every year and end up in that national championship game like he has on 5 of the 7 years we've had the playoffs. It's just again, in an era where you can only sign 25 players in a given class. It's remarkable. And playing the schedule they play to get there before they even get there. Yeah. I mean, that's just so.
Yeah. Pat, I mean, it is just amazing to me. And again, I've never been around Nick Saban, but it says, I think that's all you need to know is that you represent more Alabama players than any other agent in the country. I know at one time, everybody in Memphis knows about Jimmy Sexton. Y'all work together. I don't know Jimmy, but I know Kyle Rote Jr., and he works out at the Y, swims, works out all the time. And you go back and you think about the relationships that you've developed over the years. They're absolutely priceless. But I can say, Jake Crane and I and Jimmy Hodge is on with us, and I know you want to get off, and I'm going to say, Pat, and if anything changes, by the way, if you have to come by train or Greyhound or plane, we're going to hit the woods. We're going to hit it hard all day Sunday. If you want to come up here, you've got a bed, and my wife Audrey's going to make some hot food for you and all my friends.
Oh man, I do.
I overslept, and I'm so sorry that Monday. But you were and Michael. We want you back up here. You. And by the way, we're still working on that wine, which was fantastic. And thank you.
Good. Well, I'm glad you are enjoying it, and I really had a great time out there. And I'd love to come back, but I've been effectively traveling ever since I left you in Arkansas. Between going down to Florida last week, checking on guys at their training facilities, and then I've been in Mobile all week, and I'm ready to sleep in my own bed, and I've got some things I got to do. I've got to do this weekend around family and stuff. I appreciate the invite, and it's great being with you guys. And Jake, great talking to you. And I can remember your mom being pregnant with you, man. That's how long I've known about you.
To be honest, I'm really glad that worked out.
Yeah,
I am too.
Yeah, man. But no, your dad was. Again, he'll forever hold a very special place in my heart. You know, being literally the first guy to ever sign with me in a 33-year career, and loved working for him, loved working with him. He's a good man and excellent player, leader, coach. I'm sure father, and we're all blessed to have had our fathers as long as we did have them. So y'all have a great weekend, Rob. I hope y'all kill some ducks, and it was great being with y'all.
Hey, Pat, I'm going to be over there. I'm going to be over there the weekend of March 6th, and I've got a bunch of duck I'm bringing to you and some venison and venison boudin. Hey, if it ever swam, flew, crawled, or ran, it's coming over there to see you. But thank you so much for your time, and we're looking forward to having you on again. And I can tell you this, anybody out there listening, this is the man you want to be as your representative. Sports is agent, whatever you want to call it. He's got a team up there at his office. You are going to say that's the smartest decision you ever made in your life. And thank you so much again, Pat, for being with us.
All right. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Pat. Thank you.
You too.
All right, Jake.
Hey, we got Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy Show, Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville right now, and Jimmy Ott from down in Baton Rouge, ESPN 104.5. We're going to be joined, Jimmy, in just a minute by Justin Wynn, general manager, Red River Ford Toyota over in Wynn, Arkansas. But Jimmy Ott, thank you so much for, we're going to go a little sidelines extra today, but what's going on down there in Baton Rouge, man? Will Wade, tough as nails, big win over Ole Miss, but this guy is tough. And you talk about LSU basketball. They just keep on winning.
Well, they had a little rough week when Alabama rolled into town and dropped 60 on us by half, and increased to an easy victory there. That was as bad of a beating an LSU basketball has taken in my lifetime, since I've been watching them since the late 70s. And then they lost to Kentucky, and Kentucky played well. And so one of the common issues for LSU, they will have some issues at times on the defensive end. They're highly skilled, but sometimes they lack a little dog. They don't really they don't get after it a whole lot. So they beat A&M, and now they're set up for the defending. The last time the tournament was played, the runner-up against Virginia. Texas Tech was a bucket away from winning the whole thing 2 years ago, and they come in as part of the Big 12 SEC showdown, and taking my son to the game tomorrow, and we'll be sitting there. But I think it's going to be a tall task, and I think that the LSU players can kind of learn from Chris Beard demands in Lubbock, to see why he's been so successful and on his way again. I mean, they get after it, and that's something that I think when it's all said and done, it's going to limit this LSU basketball team. Highly skilled, they've got a lot of guys who can fill it up, but they're not committed to doing some of the dirty work that doesn't show up in the box score. It's going to limit you. They're probably maybe a one-win team or a one-and-done type of team in the tournament. So they've got some growing to do. And I'll be honest, I'm not the most confident that they'll get that done. But they always give you a chance because they can score. But it's going to be a really nice day, man. Alabama at Oklahoma, it's going to be outstanding. Oklahoma's just beating Kansas and Texas. Texas in the top 5, beat them in Austin. Florida's won 3 in a row. They're hot all of a sudden. They're going into West Virginia. West Virginia and Texas Tech, probably the highest level game that I've seen this year. Not rarely do you see a team score 87 points and only 2 turnovers and lose like Texas Tech did to West Virginia. But part of the reason was West Virginia didn't miss a shot. Literally did not miss a shot the last 10 minutes of the game. This is a fun thing. It's a fun thing that college basketball, the SEC, has done to add some interest to the college basketball season.
Yeah. Jake Crane, Jimmy Hodge, you're on here with us. Come on in.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just look at the level that the SEC's kind of attained on their way to dominance in basketball, which I think is a matter of time. You mentioned that Alabama-Oklahoma game, and as hot as Oklahoma is, that one should be up and down. I'm really excited to see the guard play in that game. Then you got Auburn and Baylor, which Auburn with Sharif Cooper right now. They're a different team. Still no Justin Powell, and I'm ready to see the Davion Mitchell versus Sharif Cooper matchup. In my opinion, Davion Mitchell, Auburn transfer, sat behind Jared Harper, guarding Sharif Cooper. I think that's must-see television, two future NBA guys. But the thing I like about watching this is the styles, too. You look at Alabama that does want to be up and down. Can Oklahoma match that in transition for the whole game? And then you talk about Auburn and Baylor, like I just mentioned. Baylor's a team that really does want to slow you down defensively. They're really long. They communicate very well. So, again, it's just great matchups. I think good college basketball games are about as fun to watch as anything out there. And these teams that are marching toward the tournament, really kind of trying to identify themselves. But, Jimmy, isn't it crazy? I know we got like 4 Jimmys on right now, so I'm probably speaking to everybody. But isn't it crazy how in 1 year you can have Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina a little bit, just some of the blue bloods really struggling. In Kentucky right now, outside of B.J. Boston, who's still not shooting the ball very well, doesn't have a go-to scorer. It's really just such a weird year.
Yeah, I failed to mention the Auburn-Baylor game, and I feel like I'm the president of the Sharif Cooper fan club because I do a sports handicapping show, and Auburn was 3-8 against the spread before he was granted eligibility, and they are now 5-0-1. I mean, he does so many things. He's so quick. His handles are sick, and he's got good moves as well. He could beat his man off the dribble just about at any point that he wants. One of the more impressive things that I saw was on Saturday against South Carolina. By the way, they're a 2-point dog. I was laughing at halftime. I was down on the coast. He had 10 assists at half. 10 assists at half. So, I mean, 8.2, he's averaging 22 and 9 in his 6 games. 8.2 assists leads the country in assists. There's 357 Division I teams. I mean, so absolutely, he is awesome. And did you see the plus minus against Missouri when he went down with his third foul? They're up 14. He comes back early in the second half. They're down 6. Then they win by 6. Do the math. But that's a plus minus of plus 42. He is really, really special. And, I mean, makes them so much fun. I mean, I'm going to get about 15 in that game tomorrow, but I'm riding them till they lose because he is something.
Well, him and I'll say this, and Sharif is unbelievable, and he's playing the game at a different speed, but Cam Thomas at LSU, I think, is one of the most dynamic scorers I've seen. That now, I know defensively he's still a young guy. There's some other parts of his game he has to work on. But Cam Thomas at LSU, if you haven't watched LSU, the first time you watch him and you see Cam Thomas, that kid is a walking bucket. And once he puts it together and becomes more of a complete player, I understand the hype now. I think he's leading the SEC in scoring and nobody knows about it. He's just a guy to me that with the ball in his hands is so dangerous. But Sharif, the thing to me, and I think you guys agree, Jimmy, I think you agree, we've all seen great point guards that can drive and finish at the rim. But I watched him literally when it was a minute and a half to go against Missouri. You're up 6. He's bringing the ball up the court in the backcourt and counted to 9 in the backcourt and then stepped over. So he's playing a totally different game than anybody else. And I haven't seen anything like it in a while, to be honest with you.
Reminds me, maybe a little bit of Kenny Anderson because, out of New York, who played for Georgia Tech and was part of the Final Four team that actually had a 6-point lead at halftime against an incredible UNLV team that blasted Duke in the final. But he shoots better. He's got to be 85% at the line. So at the end of the game, just put it in his hands. But he can score at any point on any part of the court too. So he's not just one of these, finishers and 3-point specialists. He sees the court. I mean, he's special, man. There's when he went out of the game against Missouri, they were flat out lost. I mean, it was a joke.
Jimmy, I say when Tariq's in the game, it's a Monet and a Van Gogh. When he's out, it looks like a 6-year-old stole a magic marker and drew all over the bathroom wall.
Look, I played a little point guard. I'm kind of I watch them a little bit closer because they can make their teammates better. They can set their teammates up. And all of a sudden, these guys, and I don't know his name, the big lefty that parks it on the left wing at all times. He's getting a lot better looks right now, with Cooper. So, I mean, he's really, really special. It's going to be, and that's where the odds makers are fighting. They're putting them, they're kind of catching up with them. But the point spread value's been driven down so low because they didn't have him for so long. But they are, and he had to get his shot selection down a little bit. He shot a little bit out of control against Alabama in his first game when he shot a low percentage. And that's something that Cam Thomas has to fine tune as well. Cam is a scorer.
Hey,
unbelievably on his shot, but he's got there's still sometimes early in the shot clock where he could be a little bit more selective.
All right, let me say this real quick. We're going to go a little bit of Sidelines Extra today on the www.sidelines.live Friday podcast here from the Cherry Farm in Parkin, Arkansas. We've got Justin Wynn, General Manager of Red River Ford Toyota over in Wynn, Arkansas. And Justin got Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast, #1 in the country after 8 months, over 250 episodes. We just had Pat Dye Jr. on from Atlanta talking about the draft. And of course, he was up here a couple of weeks ago hunting with us in Arkansas. And I've got Jimmy Hodge in Chicago, actually Knoxville right now. And also Jimmy Ott from down in Baton Rouge.
What's going on in Knoxville?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Is he part of the Air National Guard or the National Guard?
That's right.
Trying to calm things down in Knoxville.
That's right. We're going to get to that in just a second. Let's say hello, though, to Justin Wynn, General Manager, Red River Ford Toyota, one of our sponsors. And I know in the first hour we focused Justin on the Toyotas. And Jake, I think you can attest Toyotas are awesome. And Justin Wynn, let's talk about Ford this hour, Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis. John Dobbs Jr., the Dobbs family, synonymous with car and truck business for a long, long time. They're back. John Dobbs Jr. is a part of the Red River Auto Group at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. If you're on 64, Highway 64, going back and forth to Heber Springs, about a half mile south of 64, across the street from the Jordan's Exxon. You cannot miss it. We were there last night. But Justin, let's talk about those Ford trucks, because I drive an F-150 and I got a great streak going. I'm batting 1,000. I have never been stuck.
That's awesome. I'll tell you, the Fords are amazing. They've got a brand new Ford F-150 out for 2021. It's a new body. It's a new interior. And I'm telling you, they did a great job with these trucks. And, as far as we go here at Red River Ford and Toyota, we try to make everything simple. Hopefully Jake can attest to that a little bit.
Jake, you there? Oh, I'm sorry. Jake had to get off, actually. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Jake, are you there? Yeah, Jake, he had to get off at 5:00 for another interview, but he absolutely loved it. And let me just tell you this. He drove the Toyota 4Runner with the whiteout package back over here to the Cherry Farm in Parkin, and he had to drive back to Tupelo. He's moving to Atlanta next week. He goes, I didn't want to stop driving. This was awesome. And I can just tell you this. He raved about it. I mean, it is an easy experience. Your people that work there love making dreams come true.
They better, that's what it's all about. We want it to be a fun and exciting experience. When you're buying a new car, truck, SUV, even if it's a pre-owned car, we want it to feel like a great experience and a fun time. You don't spend this much money on anything else in your life typically other than your house. And you need to be excited about getting a new car. And we do everything we can to ensure that you are.
Tomorrow morning, you open up at what time?
We will open up at 7:30 in our service department. Sales will be here at 9. And I'm telling you, it's the last day of the month. I've got a personal goal I've set out for our store all year. And we were going to end today just a few units short of reaching that goal. So if you've ever wanted to get over on a car dealer, tomorrow will be your day here in Wynn.
Hey, we're going to come by there and say hello tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you what, go by there and get you a car, truck, SUV. They've also got a used inventory of over 700. Check them out on their website, redriverfordtoyota.com. You will love these people. Rusty Howard, the sales manager, Justin Wynn, the general manager, their sales team, Justin Futrell in the service department. They're open till noon on Saturdays. Hey, after you go out and knock you out a 14-point, 250-pound buck in your dreams, but you might do it, or limit out, 24, 36 ducks, go by. They're open noon on the service department. Make sure you get your truck or SUV or car maintained. They've got a great service department. Justin Wynn, they'll be there all day tomorrow until the last sale is done. Again, check them out on our website, redriverfordtoyota.com, on sidelines.live. And Justin, we will talk to you in the morning again at 8:30 on Sports 56 Saturday Sidelines.
Thanks, Rob.
You bet. Okay, let's get back here. I've got the dueling Jimmies, dueling banjos. We have dueling Jimmies. Jimmy Hodge, come on in here. I know just before we went to the break with Justin Wynn, Jimmy Ott was asking, what's going on up in Knoxville? And you're there. Nobody better than to ask the horse himself from the horse's mouth.
Well, I think the emotions have pretty much run the gamut. You have a sizable part of the fan base that realized that some serious NCAA sanctions are in Tennessee's future, and as a result, they obviously had trouble getting a splash hire, a marquee name coach, and it's just going to be a long slog. Now, of course, you have another segment of the fan base that thinks it's still 1998, and it doesn't matter what the issues are; they should just be able to, make a run at John Gruden. How many times did you hear that over the years? Whenever a Tennessee head coaching vacancy came up, So I do think a large part of the fan base does understand that they're not in a great situation. I think that considering the circumstances, they haven't done badly in the last week and a half. Landing Danny White, I thought, was huge. It's going to give them some stability because he actually has a very good track record of hiring coaches, both in football and basketball. Lance Leopold, who he brought in from Wisconsin Whitewater, and he's still there, and he was considered for a few of these Power 5 jobs. I think he's probably a couple of years away, but he came in and pretty much broke up that Mount Union string of about 10, 11 Division III championships in a row, and actually went 6-1 against them. And so I think you'll see him at worst in a group of 6 job in a year or two. And then, of course, he hired Bobby Hurley at Buffalo. And then when Bobby went to Arizona State, then he hired Nate Oates. And then also Scott Frost was obviously a great hire. He turned a UCF program that was 0-12 into 13-0 within 2 years. And then actually Josh Heupel had done a very solid job, had a 12-1 season, as Jimmy knows, when LSU snapped the unbeaten streak. And we're on course to really keep rolling until Mackenzie Milton had the horrible knee injury, the outstanding quarterback. And, he's been out 2 years and has since transferred to Florida State. So I think that was really the most urgent hire, and I thought they did well, yeah. And Heupel was, I think that was as good as you could do right now. I don't know what you're hearing from other people, Jimmy.
Well, listen, we try and tell people around here, Tennessee was once a top 5 job. Like you talk about Manning years, win it the year after him in 98 with T. Martin, 2001, 1 win away from a national championship game appearance till LSU upset them in the SEC championship game. And, their last SEC championship appearance was 2007 against LSU as well. And I sat in that press conference, and somebody asked Fulmer, and Fulmer got a little agitated when they asked him, said, well, it's been 10 years since you won a conference championship. What's going on? Well, who knew it'd be the last time they're in that game since that time. But, you also remind people they have resources. Their neighbors are much more competitive in the recruiting battles when you're talking about Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and some others. It's not where they could just go cherry pick Cozy Coleman and Jamal Lewis out of Atlanta. And, whether it's Peyton Manning, and the others out of Louisiana that they would come and get. But they're number 11 in gross revenue as far as football programs are concerned. So now but 9 of 13 losing seasons at Tennessee. My gosh, this is the mid '90s for LSU when Curly Hallman had lost 5 in a row. And so, I'm very familiar with this type of situation, and it seems like some people are pulling in different directions in that thing. I thought the former AD was sabotaged, where they knew every step he was making in the hiring process. They wanted to criticize it. Then the social media revolt when, Shiano was in place. Kevin White, I know his dad, Kevin White, when he was the AD at Tulane. And so he is a get. There's no doubt he is a get. I just wonder about if the UCF program was starting to decline under Josh Heupel. It's only fair if you want to put it all on one injury in Mackenzie Milton. Gabriel's not a bad quarterback. Is he Mackenzie Milton? Maybe not, but he's good. So, we'll see, but I don't want to overreact to anything in 2020. Okay. So, but it's just a proud program that the fan base cares about. Sometimes it can be a little bit counterproductive when they, being unrealistic, but Kiffin, Kiffin's not going anywhere right now. I'm a little surprised that they would even want Kiffin after he left him in 1 year. They burned all his crap on the way out. Hugh Freeze, the league is going to enforce or have influence and enforce the show clause if he takes a job. Auburn wanted him, and they were given word by the SEC, stay away. But I wonder about the Coastal Carolina coach, that they wouldn't have taken a swing at him a little bit. That puzzles me a little bit, unless he was. I don't know if he was offered, but from what my knowledge, he was not.
Jimmy, I think he was definitely in the mix until they, I guess it became apparent that Fulmer was not going to be involved in the hiring of the new coach, because I think there was going to be a really tough slog in trying to get a marquee coach who had a proven track record of winning at the Power 5 level and so forth. And when Fulmer in his press conference with Plowman, who just let everybody know, and which was shocking to me, that after a phone conversation with their law firm that had been conducting that investigation, within 3 hours of having a conversation with them, they decided that they would have to make all these moves: let the head coach go, let 2 assistants, I guess 3 or 4 assistants, and just let a whole bunch of people go. Fulmer said that they really needed a coach that was going to be there for 10 years. And so Chadwell, would have fallen in that category. I think under those circumstances, I think he had a shot. But I think once Danny White, it became apparent he was going to be in charge of the search, that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, Jamie Chadwell, Will Healy at Charlotte are 2 of those up-and-coming coaches that are going to be big stars in the future. And I would not be surprised to see them at Power 5 programs within the next couple of years.
No, without a doubt. No, they're coming. What about Napier from ULL?
Yes. I thought he was going to be a really a player in that Auburn search early on, and he was supposed to interview, and then
He was, Jimmy. I'm hate to cut you off, but he was.
Yeah.
They wanted him to inherit some coaches on staff, and he didn't want to accept the job with conditions. You know,
that was my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my understanding also. But man, he has done a tremendous job at Louisiana, and he's definitely going to be in one of those spots also. So, and that's always, you know, kind of exciting to see some of these rising stars, you know, that are really having success at a young age. And, you know, it just tells you that there's always going to be great talent in the coaching ranks, as well as, you know, these players coming up through the high school level that have access to all these camps nowadays. And they really get taught, especially at the skill positions at an early age. So you just never know what's going to happen in 5 year spans. You know, one program might be down, and then the next thing you know, I mean, 10 years ago, whoever thought Clemson would be where they're at right now?
Hey,
let me ask you, what is the Tennessee job? Where does it rank right now? Because I ask everybody who I respect on my show right now, and I have my own thoughts, but where does the Tennessee job, where is it ranked right now?
Jimmy, let me say this. I mean, we were talking about this, and we did a couple of podcasts this week. Whoops. And you look at Tennessee in this millennium, Jimmy Ott, Jimmy Hodge, both of you. They've been ranked in the postseason one time in the top 10 in this millennium. That was 2001. They were number 4 in the country. They've been ranked in the top 15, top 25 several other times. They haven't won an SEC championship. They won back-to-back 97, 98. Ninth winningest program in the history of college football. But they've lost 15 of the last 16 to Florida, 14 in a row to Alabama, 7 of the last 8 to Auburn. And I'm going to direct this again now to add fuel to the question that Jimmy Ott asked. Jimmy Hodge, where does the Tennessee job rank? In terms of blue-bloodedness, Tennessee probably ranks second all time only to Alabama. But in the last 20 years, and that's the age bracket that these recruits are in, where does this job rank? I'm with Jimmy Ott.
I'm going to say I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I would say first in the SEC, they're one of the upper half as far as resources with budget and money, but they're last of the high resource, high budget programs, in my opinion. When you talk about Alabama, Auburn, LSU, A&M in the East, and Florida and Georgia in the West, and then Florida, Georgia in the East. But the money gives them a chance. It gives them a chance. Their branding isn't what it is. Look, man, General Neal my man's long gone. Okay, you can't tell that to recruits right now. And but I would put it around fringe top 25, top 30 right now. They've got a lot of this just in. They've got some issues, but they still have a chance to build it back up. And I think the guy we just talked about, who played a major role in building it to its apex as a top 5 job behind the 3 Florida schools and in Nebraska back in the late 90s, you know, it was time for him to be removed from the equation. Fulmer had to step aside. And sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better, so to speak. But the fan base, the interest, and the budget gives it a resource that, you know, a lot of programs around the country don't have.
Jimmy Hodge, add on.
I agree that Tennessee, of the traditional heavyweight programs, of those programs in the league that have had a long history of winning and all that, they would be the bottom team in that category. I would put them at around 6th in the SEC, maybe 7th. I would put Auburn in front of them because you still have to deal with the fact that, as Jimmy mentioned earlier, they could go into Georgia in the past and really get some prime players in Louisiana when, you know, the DiNardo years Georgia with the Goff and Donnan years. Well, those days are gone. But it is not the job that it was. Make no mistake about that. And they don't have a great recruiting base. I mean, in state in Tennessee, I'm saying probably there are 15 to 20 Power 5 conference players produced in Tennessee every year. There possibly more, but I would say that's a fairly accurate number. But still, though, they got some things they can sell. They can sell immediate playing time. You're playing at the premier conference in college football. If again, you know that just about any time you walk onto the field to play a conference opponent, now not as much as if you were in the West, but you know you're going to be playing against future NFL players. Your ability can be tested to the max, and they have outstanding coaching staffs that if you have the God-given talent, athletic ability, and you've got that ceiling to be able to one day play in the NFL, you have coaching staffs that can get you there. It's up to you. So they do have things to sell. I mean, lower tier programs have things to sell to recruits, middle of the road programs in the league, and also the upper echelon teams. So there's no reason, honestly. I don't know how you feel about this, Jimmy, but every team in the league should at least have good players, a good base of players, and every team should really have good skill position players, I think, that can throw it and catch it. The difference usually is between the elite teams and everybody else is up front on both sides of the ball and having depth in those places.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. And, talking about recruiting, how bad it is right now in Tennessee. And yes, it's a little bit thin as far as producing SEC caliber players in the state of Tennessee, but still, you've got to do better than have one of your state's top 10 ranked players come into your program, which Tennessee has right now. I mean, 9 of the top 10 are leaving. So, your brand is off, and your brand is built by winning. And I mean, chicken or the egg as far as but the SEC brand, the ability to play in the SEC is a big deal. That's why Texas A&M is just a matter of time. I don't know how much. I mean, you have the whole state of Texas. You can stay in state and play in the highest level, the best league. That's something to sell over there. So what is Tennessee? Will they regain that capture? Will they recapture that form that they had? I don't think they'll be, cracking the top 5 as a job again with their branding and things like that. Because like we talked about, the area they're recruiting against, those teams have gotten much, much better. Like you said, Donardo, Goff, Don, and others are gone.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
We'll see, but still they're underperforming of getting the state's best players. They got to get the state's best players before they worry about anywhere else. But again, they've got money and money helps. Okay. So we'll see.
Hey,
another thing, Jimmy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we're about running out of time here. We are over a little bit, but let me say this: great points by Jimmy Ott of ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, Jimmy Hodge in Chicago, actually Knoxville right now. Look, we're going to be back on tomorrow morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Sports 56 WHBQ. Again, a shout out to one of our listeners, Haley, down in the Turks and Caicos, and the rest of the clan. Love y'all. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us. And Jimmy Ott, thank you so much for being on with us. Jimmy Hodge, everybody on this show, Wes Moore, Jake Crane, Mitch Davis. If I forgot a name, I apologize. Of course, Pat Dye Jr. from Atlanta. That was fantastic stuff. We're going to be back on in the morning. And Jimmy Ott, I want to tell you something before you sign off and let people know how to follow you. You're always welcome Saturday, Sunday, the wrap-up show, sidelines.live, 3 to 5 p.m. on Sundays as well. Great stuff. I love you. Unfiltered Jimmy Ott. Tell people how they can follow you. We're going to have to sign off here because you also do a lot with the betting lines.
Yes, indeed. Follow me on Twitter at JimmyOtt1045. You can check out our broadcast at 6 to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10 a.m. on Fridays. And you can also watch us on Facebook Live at Jimmy Ott's Game Time. Appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great weekend. Man.
You do
Enjoy
too.
it.
Thank you so much. Jimmy Ott might have the greatest job in the world. He gets to eat at a different restaurant in Baton Rouge every day. I mean, whether it's lunch or dinner, how can you go wrong with that? I mean, it's just.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
That's right. That's right. Hey, but look, Jimmy Hodge, thanks so much for being on here with us. And look, we will be back on tomorrow morning, 8 to 10 a.m., Sports 56 WHBQ, 96.1 FM, and the new FM, 98.5. God love you, Johnny Radio, Mike Brewer, Eli, the whole crew. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back with you at Sports 56 WHBQ. And we've got Sonny Smith on talking some basketball tomorrow. Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, a bunch of other guests. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast. Again, Jimmy Hodge will be with us. And again, 8 to 10 a.m. Saturday morning, Sports 56 WHBQ. That is sidelines.live. You can find the sports56whbq.com website. And again, Sunday afternoon, 3 to 5 p.m. Central on the Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Again, to Robbie and everybody, the working man out there, everybody out there that's making America work, make America great again, make America hunt again, and listen to Sidelines.live. If you listen live, thank you. If you missed the show, check out our website, www.sidelines.live. Nigel, thank you. I've got an East London meat pie coming your way. As David Goggins says, don't quit because you're tired, quit because you're done, and don't quit because you have any other reason other than to say, we love you, Shoney. Thanks for the critique during the show. And hello, Grand Bob. We're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Central on Sports 56 WHBQ, Sidelines on Saturday. Hey, man. Hey. Oh, whoa. Ah, thank you so much, man. That was fun. Let me get